Okay, now it likes it. Good. View the dashboard. Give me a break. I do not like these links the way they come across. Let's see, they're a better link. Oh, Clemson with an interception in the end zone.
Mm.
All right, here we go. About to get a link over to you. There it goes. Coming your way. That should work. Still not quite seeing it. Let's see if it's actually up and running. All right, it is up and running.
So we're live.
We are live. We are in the middle of the second playoff game between Clemson and Ohio State. And holy cow, Casey, this has not gone according to plan, at least what most people thought was going to happen in this game. I'm thoroughly entertained by this with Ohio State just absolutely dog cussing Clemson at this point. The second half just started 35-14 at the half.
Yeah, and Clemson just intercepted a pass in the end zone, but other than that, it doesn't look like it's going to get a whole lot better for Clemson. We shall see, but no, not at all what we expected out of this one. I definitely thought Ohio State was a better football team than Notre Dame. That's for damn sure. Whether or not they deserve to be in because of the number of games, that's a different question. But I never thought they were not an elite football team. So, but I still expected Clemson to win this one. So yeah, this is pretty surprising. Although Billy Lucci of Texags just pointed out earlier that boy, this Clemson team probably has the worst offensive line of any of the top 6 teams in the rankings, and nobody's been talking about it, including myself. To which I pointed out to Billy, that's not actually true, because even I pointed out a few weeks ago that Cole Kublik had been talking about this. Not that I had observed it really personally, but just that somebody was out there saying something's not quite right with Clemson's offensive line, and that could be a problem.
Yeah, it could be, and it's certainly showing up tonight. But I'll say this: it's not just their offensive line; their defensive line is getting smoked tonight so far. Ohio State is lining up and just physically pushing them around. They're getting what they want on offense. There's some hard hitting going on from both defenses, but overall, man, Ohio State came to play. They just absolutely came to play, and they seem to be playing angry. There was a lot of talk this week, and Dabo, ranking them 11th, which we'll get to that.
You explained it.
We did, right? But they just look pissed off, and Justin Fields kind of looks like he's on a mission. He did just throw the pick, but he's taken some shots, and he's come back in and made some just hellacious throws. And man, look, I respect the hell out of Dabo. I think he, what he's done at Clemson is unbelievable. He's sort of busted narratives. but there's just something about the guy that when something like this goes down, you kind of enjoy that too.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but
He's got that face, man. He's got that punchable country boy face.
he does.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
And he
see
goes
if
by
Clemson.
Dabo.
Yeah, he does. We'll see if Clemson can kind of get it going because they've come back on Ohio State before.
They have.
Right? So, go down and score and make it a 2-score game with a quarter and a half to go, and who the heck knows? Maybe we'll end up with a barn burn as we're sitting here talking about it.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But look, I think what's probably most appropriate for you and I to talk about in regards to this game is we didn't talk a lot about Ohio State and Ohio State getting into the playoff because
are you sure?
I
heard Chris Fowler running his mouth saying that A&M fans wanted in over this Ohio State team.
Yeah.
Unquote. And certainly there were a lot of hot opinions about the number of games among Aggie fans and all the entire college football world. But you and I and pretty much every other Aggie were far more pissed off about Notre Dame.
Yes.
But anyway.
Well, because we thought Ohio State probably was a really good football team.
Mm-hmm.
They're incredibly talented. They've been there and done it. But the argument going into the playoff and the final ranking show was, at least from a lot of folks, including every other head coach of a playoff team. So, was that they didn't play enough games. And that they shouldn't be here, not because they're not good enough, but because they didn't go through the grind.
Right.
And you know what? Maybe they're more fresh. I don't know. They're flying around. They didn't play a lot of back-to-back weeks.
No, and I think there's absolutely something to that, and I've pointed it out several times. Aggies were mad about the number of games, and rightfully so. But the ones that should be the most angry about it are the ones that potentially had to face them in the playoff with twice as much wear and tear on their team. And that sort of thing matters. So, and which is why I think you saw Nick Saban and Dabo kind of ticked off about it and saying so in the media.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, it obviously didn't sit well with a lot of people, but here we are, and they're making the most of it. Looks like Clemson has crossed midfield. They've got a third and about 6 inches to go. If they cross the 40, Ohio State 40, they'll have a first down, trying to get back in this game. And I wouldn't put it past them. I'll say one thing that's driving me nuts about the broadcast tonight is down here when they tell you down in distance, it's like a gold background.
Yes, the gold background makes me think there's a flag on every play. What are you guys thinking?
Every play. It's maddening. And they do pick up the first down, Etienne, with the carry. Man, Lawrence he's complaining a lot tonight. It's got a little Luka Doncic going on tonight.
And let me tell you, Lawrence has had happy feet from the opening snap.
Yes, he has.
Even when things were kind of rolling okay early, I was like, "Why? This guy's throwing off his back foot a lot. It's not what we are used to from him."
Yeah, he just didn't look settled, like another quarterback this week in a big game. But we'll get there. Okay. So, listen, guys. For the folks that have joined us, we will follow along on this one. But there was another game today, and it went pretty much exactly like we expected it to, with Notre Dame basically getting their ass handed to them by Alabama. But it wasn't as obscene, I think, as we expected it to be. Or, let's be honest, it could have
been. Yes, yeah. Absolutely.
So
I had to laugh because I haven't been watching ESPN, and I certainly wasn't going to watch Game Day this morning to listen to those idiots. As out of the corner of my eye, I see Lawrence on that last play try to hand off to the wrong side. So like we said, he's not dialed in tonight. But anyway, I switched over, and Game Day was the lead into the Georgia-Cincinnati game. So I caught the last 90 seconds of Game Day just in time to hear Herb Street's prediction on the Rose Bowl here in Dallas. Alabama's going to win out in the end, but Notre Dame's going to keep it a lot closer than everybody thinks. They're going to hang in there. And I just I I couldn't believe it. The guy just can't help himself. And so now,
Yeah.
you're only a few minutes in thinking, yeah, Kirk, like Notre Dame told you everything you needed to know. And you ignored what was in front of your face because they got some shiny gold paint on their helmets, and that's it.
Yeah, and look, the for Aggies or for Aggies making a bunch of noise on Twitter, they're getting a lot of talk back about the difference in the two football games. I'm going to ignore all that because anybody that watched it, pull your head out your ass. It was a very different football game. The way it was played, the way it went, and yes, Alabama scored a lot more points when they played us. But let's actually focus on what happened tonight. And that was really from the get go. Notre Dame couldn't move Alabama, couldn't move them up front. Not really. Now, and meanwhile, Alabama was slicing through this vaunted Notre Dame defense like it wasn't even there.
Yeah.
Right. So taking any kind of shot, any kind of play they wanted to run, it seemed like they could run 7, 8 yards, just gashing them.
Like they've been doing to everybody.
Yes, like they do to everybody. And, the big touchdown drive that Notre Dame had in the first half, they hit the first play and they cross midfield on a screen pass, right? They catch Alabama being a little too aggressive and they reel off 30 yards, they get right to midfield. And from that point on, it took them 14 plays and 8 minutes to go the rest of the way and score. And they were just dinking and like you could tell they were just doing anything they could. They were scrapping it out to try to score, and they got it.
And to be fair, that was their strategy, and that's really hard to do against Alabama, to dink and dunk your way. You try to do that, and eventually they stuff you. Like, it's hard to do that against them. Yep. And they were clearly trying to shorten the game.
Yes.
And they ate up a lot of time. And, good for them.
Good for them. It worked. Yeah. They got the 7 points, and then that's all they got. That was it. So, they in Alabama jumped out 21-7. And then we expect, what was interesting in this game to me was, what's the one thing we say Alabama is really, really good at in the last couple of minutes of a half and then coming out in the second half? This is where they actually killed A&M multiple times. They will score on you. Mm-hmm. You will panic and do something with 2 minutes to go. You'll throw a pick. You'll 3-and-out it. Mm-hmm. They'll grab it again. They'll score again. Okay. And then they'll come right back in the second half, take the ball and go right down the field.
Boom. And it's 3 touchdowns in a flash.
Yeah.
And you're done.
But what we saw tonight was really bizarre from Alabama because they were up 21-7. And then what did they start doing? With about 5 minutes to go in the half,
they started milking clock.
Milking clock? Running the football.
When have we seen that from Alabama ever?
We haven't.
In that situation.
Yeah. And it was interesting because they did have the ball to start the second half. But we just don't see that from them. And they didn't need to do it. There was no resistance at this point. And, ended up kind of grinding out a couple of running plays. And then, all of a sudden a third down and they don't pick it up. Either dropped a pass or is defended. And then they come out in the second half and they don't score. They have quick 3-and-out. But then as they do get total control of the game late, they start grinding out clock again. And I actually understand it. I really do.
They got another game to play.
They have a huge game to play in a week, right? Against number 2 or number 3 in the country. So, if you're Nick Saban, let's not leave Devontae Smith out there running deep every play. Let's take care of some guys. Najee Harris didn't even play in the fourth quarter. I don't think he played. So, that kind of tells you all you need to know. And then Notre Dame scores, some scrub garbage time touchdown with a minute, and then the onside kick, and then throwing it, trying to score again. And that's what the media all night tonight has kind of been latching on to in defense of themselves is, they played it closer, blah, 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 blah. My
14 God. Garbage points.
Yeah, 14 garbage points. Yep.
It's incredible. When you look at during the time that actually mattered in these last two games, they scored 10 points. They averaged 320 yards over the two games, but really, did they? I mean, how much did they get in garbage time again? They were totally hopeless outside of basically two drives that actually mattered in both of those football games.
Yeah, and look, we said we wouldn't spend too much time on here, but you made a great point earlier out on the Twitter channel that, A&M was playing their backup quarterback at the end of that game. They scored 28 against Alabama. They could have scored a hell of a lot more, had the missed field goal, and had some other opportunities that where guys were open or drop passes or whatever. They really left a lot of points on the field, but they scored 28.
5 trips in the red zone with no points, I believe.
Yeah, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but then they have their backup quarterback in the game at the end, and he throws a pick in the end zone, right? So they weren't trying to score garbage time touchdowns the same way Notre Dame was. So congrats to Notre Dame for making it appear somewhat less of an ass kicking than it really was, because they were never in the football game, period. And, backdoor cover, slow clap for you guys on your backdoor cover. Anyway, yeah, it was honestly a pretty terrible game to watch. And I think that's what we all feared. We didn't want to watch a terrible football game in the college football playoff. But that's what Notre Dame does. That's what they've been giving us. That's what they gave the BCS. That's what they gave any major bowl they played in. I think in their last eight trips to a bowl game, major bowls, by the way.
Yeah.
They've just gotten dog cussed in all of them. I think they've lost everyone by at least 14 points.
Yeah. In fact, Mrs. Meltdown saw that graphic on Twitter and just had to do the math. It's something like an average of 24 points is the margin that they've lost by.
So this is incredible. I don't know if you're watching this up here.
Just popped over.
Yeah, so this is incredible. I think the call on the field is touchdown, and it is. So 3rd and 10. Ohio State is 3rd and 10 from their own 10-yard line. And Justin Fields drops back to pass, and he just dumps it down into the flat. 3 guys come up to make the stop for Clemson. And the middle guy, I'm trying to see who that is. He just fell down. Okay? Just absolutely fell down. All right, this is going to be overturned. This is not going to be a touchdown, by the way.
Yeah, that is clearly he is down.
Unbelievable that, yeah. So Sermon was down, his elbow hit, every part of his body hit, and he still got up and ran at the distance. And here's what's incredible about that is the refs actually let it happen. So they didn't call him down. They called it a touchdown on the field. Anyway, so it's not going to be a touchdown, but it shouldn't even be a first down. This is how Clemson's night is gone. 3 guys converging to make the tackle, 2 yards short of the first down. They should be getting the ball back. The guy in the middle literally just trips over himself and falls down, and Sermon goes right through the other 2 tacklers to pick up the first. And that, like I said, that's sort of been how it's gone for Clemson's defense tonight. So, yeah. And Venables is just chewing Patterson out right now, number 17, who was responsible for that, I think. So, yeah, watch this on replay, Casey. Watch this. This is great.
Yeah, I've been watching it.
Jump up to the flat right here. Uh-huh. Yeah, it wasn't Patterson. Well, that's brutal. That's brutal. But, credit to the kid for picking up the first down, I guess. But, man, they've had a rough night.
Yeah, and Sermon's on the sideline with a shit-eating grin. He knows what happened.
Yeah.
He knew that wasn't a touchdown. But anyway, all right, so right now it's 35-21 Clemson, and they've got Ohio State pinned pretty far back. But he did pick up the first down there.
It's 1st and 10. Yeah.
20, 25 or so.
I think so.
Yeah. So we shall see.
There were some other bowl games today.
Were there?
There were some bowl games. I want to start with because I just want to dog on. Well, this isn't fair. Auburn and Northwestern. So Auburn they took a beating today from Northwestern.
They did.
And I'm not surprised by this. Nobody should be surprised by that result. Gus Malzahn fired, right? The guy who ran their entire offense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, play calling. He was the mastermind behind all of that, and he already had a really bad Bo Nix, like a Bo Nix that's been getting worse and worse and worse.
Until he plays A&M, and then
Yeah,
sharp drop off immediately afterwards.
that's fair. But without Gus Malzahn, you didn't have much hope that their offense would really even be functional, and it sure appears as though they weren't. And their defense gave up a ton of points to Northwestern, a Northwestern team that really struggles to score points. So,
Yes.
Kudos to the Big Ten's number 2 team taking the SEC's
Like bottom third?
bottom third
Best
team
of the bottom third.
to the woodshed.
Yeah.
Right. And so then there, Joe Klatt gets to tweet about the SEC being a 1-team conference when the Big Ten's number 2 team destroys the SEC's 8th or 9th team, if we're being generous, this year.
With an interim head coach.
Yeah, with an interim. Yeah, exactly. So, I'm really glad I wasn't home to watch that game. It was one of those that I was out and about, and I did not even pull it up on the phone to check in on it.
I kept checking in on it. It was pretty frustrating just because actually Auburn's offensive line at times you could tell was just their physical profile was a problem for Northwestern, and Bo Nix was terrible. Couldn't throw the ball and couldn't run the ball. I was annoyed watching the game just because there were several times where I was watching massive holes develop and Bo Nix run to the wrong side of the offensive lineman he was following. And I was like, why can't he read his offensive lineman's leverage against anyone but A&M? I don't understand it. But anyway.
Well, better you than me in that case. But you know what? We're going to talk about the other game. Oh, and Ohio State's going deep. Wow. Went deep. I don't know who this kid is. This number 2.
Oh,
Chris
I don't either.
Ola, but 56-yard touchdown reception. And that's incredible. That was a beautiful throw, a great catch. Looked like the defender was right there again and didn't make the play. They've had a rough night.
We've had a rough night.
Okay, so it is now 41-21, Ohio State. Look at this one-on-one coverage. A perfect throw. Wow. So one more bowl game today involving an SEC team. This was Cincy taking on Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you thought Auburn was physically dominant up front, and it didn't matter. Georgia was physically dominant up front in this game, and it almost didn't matter. Almost, because Georgia could not get out of their own way on offense.
No.
And Cincy managed to get on the board early, taking advantage of a shanked punt. They took over the ball at midfield, and they went down and scored. And that sort of shifted the momentum because I felt like Georgia, was showing their dominance. They were showing that they were going to control the line of scrimmage on both sides. But that mistake let Cincy sort of seize momentum. They ended up scoring, I think they scored 14 points in the first half. Cincinnati did. And then they come out in the second half and they score right away. Okay, so they scored 21 points. And from then on, Georgia's defense was about as dominant as I've ever seen an SEC defense. They absolutely destroyed Cincinnati. But it almost didn't matter because JT Daniels was terrible. He was terrible.
So bad.
I couldn't believe how bad he was. I couldn't believe how many misreads there were on offense. Snap the ball, 1-2, there's a guy open, but nope, I'm not going there. I'm going to go over here to this guy in coverage. I'm going to take what I think is an easy out route, and I'm going to throw it into coverage, or it's just going to be a horrible pass. Like he was terrible. He was killing them all day. And I will give Cincinnati credit. They sold out to stop the run, and they did manage to get some pressure off the edge. right? They were fast on the edge.
They were.
They were quick.
They sold out to stop the run, but also Georgia was playing into them in the running game. It was very frustrating to watch because you're sitting there saying, you are outclassing these guys by 30 pounds. And they are fast and aggressive. And instead of running right at them, you're running complicated offensive line schemes. You're doing a lot of pulling and trapping and letting these guys run the play down. Every time you try to just man up and run straight at them, you are successful.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is about offensive coordinators that talk themselves out of this all the time, but it was very maddening to watch.
It was maddening, but they kept chipping away at it with field goals, and I honestly, I thought about halfway through the fourth quarter, I said to myself, this is going to come down to a field goal. And I actually, in my head, thought they're going to get all the way down within, like a 20, 30-yard field goal. And this kid who's been nails all day is going to shank one.
Yeah.
And they'll lose it. Well, it turns out he ends up kicking, what, a 58-yarder? Something like that?
Yeah.
It was a massive, massive kick. It would have been good from another 10 yards. He absolutely crushed it. And it's hilarious because afterwards he's over on the sidelines and everybody's trying to congratulate him. And he's like deep in meditative prayer. He's like, I've never kicked a ball like that in my life. It had to have been divine intervention because it was perfect.
It's like, I have to quit now.
I have to quit. That's the last kick. Yeah, exactly. And now he's going to live a life of celibacy in a monastery somewhere, making alcohol.
Yeah.
So they escaped. Georgia escaped. But it's so frustrating because, again, you can see how much more talent they have and how much more physically dominant they are. And then they'll go out and just piss on themselves, right? Like it's maddening sometimes.
It was. And, the Joe Klatz of the world and basically all the SEC haters were all over it on Twitter, trashing the SEC. And of course, Georgia starts coming back and all the, SEC pumpers are basically trying to throw it in everyone's face. But I have to say, I think that's a pretty big deal for Cincy. I mean,
yes,
to perform that way in that game. I mean, it came down to a field goal.
It did.
You have plenty of people saying they just don't belong. They can't compete at all as a G5 team. And there they were with a supposed top 10 team.
Right.
So
yeah, it was number 8 versus number 9.
Yeah.
Right? And I think the spread they said was 1.5 in the game. I was really impressed with their quarterback. I don't even know the kid's name. I don't know his name, but he was pretty damn good.
Ritter.
Thank you so much.
2 D's.
But man, he was making some clutch throws, live arm, and there was a ton of times where he'd get flushed out of the pocket or completely off schedule or backing up or whatever, and would still make some unbelievable throw. There was one of the touchdowns where he gets flushed to his right, plants, turns around, fires it all the way across the field into the end zone, and his guy breaks free because why would you cover close that far on the backside of a play, right? But he makes a perfect throw, and the kid makes a perfect catch. Like, just, he played out of his mind. I actually felt pretty bad for that kid. Ritter, as you say. So you say. Ritter. Go look this up. Look good. He looked good. Okay. So
he was on the back of his jersey literally the entire game.
Oh, okay. Well, I was watching on a tiny screen 5 feet away from me while trying to watch a high school girls basketball game in person. Yeah. So it is what it is. So that was today's bowl action. Shall we back it up a bit? Shall we talk about what happened the other night here in Arlington, Texas?
Do we have to?
In the fake Rose Bowl, before it was the fake Rose Bowl. Yeah. No, we need to talk about this. The fake Cotton Bowl. Yeah, that's true. It's the Cotton. Yes, the fake Cotton Bowl. It was the game between the Oklahoma Sooners and half of the Florida Gators.
Half.
So I went to this game. I was at this game because why not go watch a random college football game when you've got, that kind of a matchup in your own backyard?
Yeah, 20 minutes
Uh,
away for us.
20 minutes away, I grabbed a ticket, took some buddies, went to this game, and I expected a good game. I actually did. I thought we're going to get a high scoring, 49-45 kind of game, if not more. And I thought this will be really entertaining. It was not entertaining.
No.
If you had not, so going into the game, I was aware of the offensive opt outs for Florida. The four starters, so Pitts, the wide receiving core,
Tony.
Tony Grimes. There was one more, I don't remember. But I thought, okay, they've got Trask, and they'll still be able to move the ball, and they'll put up some points. I did not know about the opt outs on defense, how many defenders, starters for Florida were going to be announced as out of the game. And I certainly didn't know about the other 12 to 15 players total that were not available. So evidently, Florida only traveled with 60 scholarship players. That's the number. I had no idea, and I don't think a lot of people did. And Vegas, this is what's crazy about this game. So Vegas had started this game out with Florida as a 3-point favorite. With the offensive opt-outs, that line by kickoff had shifted from Florida being a 3-point favorite to being an 8.5-point underdog, depending on which book you're looking at. That's an 11.5-point movement. It was a historic shift in the betting line. Vegas was telling you this is important. This is meaningful. Now we're talking about 10 plus points. That's unbelievable.
There was also, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there was some strange things happening with the prop bets that you could play in relation to Kyle Trask. Like they had taken all of them just off the board late. Which was very interesting and might actually kind of explain some of what you saw in the stadium because it was bizarre.
It was one of the most bizarre things I've seen in watching a football game. Like I said, I was there. I basically had the all 22 view because I was at the top of Jerry World. I'm looking straight down on the field, and you could see everything develop. And what was we said all of these things. Kyle Trask was not Kyle Trask, and he was from the very first snap. And it was shocking, and to the point where early in the first quarter, we're like, something's wrong, something's physically wrong or mentally wrong. Did he get it? We're trying because this guy who has been phenomenal this season and extremely accurate with the football and taking care of the football is making throws that no starting quarterback in a Power 5 should be making in their right mind. I mean, simple out patterns, and there's a defender between him and the receiver. There is no path to throw the football, and he's throwing it. And it's obviously picked off. I've got guys with me, and as soon as he uncorks to throw the football, they're screaming, no! That kind of thing, because, something wasn't right. And his footwork was off. He was stumbling in the pocket several times early in the game. The only throws he was able to make in that first half was where a wide receiver was basically sitting down in his zone and stationary. Anything else, the third interception was because he threw a ball way behind the receiver. Wide receiver stops, dives back, gets one hand on it, pops it up, and OU gets it. It was really, really bad. So the Heisman Trophy finalist, and who may end up winning it because the votes were already in before the game, got pulled from that football game in the first half. And, who knows, was it because they had less than a week to work in a whole new receiving core? I kind of go back, I think we'll talk about this a little bit. Okay, so that's not a fumble.
He's kind of controlling it on the way down. If you're not watching, Trevor Lawrence has
Yeah, good point.
appeared to have fumbled the ball on the around midfield. So there's
Huh.
under 4 to go in the third here. They're reviewing,
Hmm.
but
I guess he didn't control that on the ground, did he?
I mean,
Paw on the football on the ground. Is that control?
I
And
mean,
is it even really? It looks like he has it when his butt hits the ground.
he's kind of got it up against his hip with one hand as he's going down.
Uh,
Um,
that's a fumble.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a fumble. They're not going to give that back to him. But anyway, so Trask was horrible. And somehow they were still in that game. They were still they were keeping it close. And then, it's like all hell broke loose, on them. They just kind of got worn down. And look, OU came to play.
oh, they did. They were mad. You're talking about playing
Yep.
angry. They were mad. You
Yep.
should point out though. I don't think you got to it that we started to see some kind of quarterback rotation after Trask had thrown 3 picks,
Yes.
and on the broadcast they seemed to know that was coming,
Huh.
which made it even stranger. And then you hear this, the stuff about the Vegas pulling the bets on Trask. It was like
Right.
they were getting wind that something wasn't quite right with him, and that things would be that he might not play the whole game, and so they had to pull his bets. But yeah, so it was very strange. Trask threw 3 picks. They were down 17-0, right? Or was it?
That
Or did it get
sounds.
to 17-7? I think it was 17-0 first.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But the strange thing was, everybody. But the final result, everyone's like, Oklahoma blew them out, and it just dominated them. And the crazy thing about that game is that, so we saw this quarterback rotation. They've got the young, talented freshmen coming in, mostly running the football, and they are running over Oklahoma.
Yes.
And they, at one point, get a turnover down 17-10 on like OU's 30-yard line.
Yep. Huge opportunity.
Huge opportunity after they went 85. They went a long way on the previous possession to score a touchdown, basically just running the football with their freshman quarterback. And you're like, they've got something rolling. OU can't stop the run, which we knew they wouldn't be able to do.
Right.
And you're like, holy cow, they get this turnover. They're about to tie this up at 17. After all of that, after the 3 picks and after Florida looking ridiculous, and who comes back on the field? Kyle Trask.
Concussed Kyle Trask is the only
Concussed something. I don't know.
like got a concussion in practice a week ago and still can't spell his name right. I don't know what's going on. But he comes back on the field and promptly just starts throwing the ball into places a human being shouldn't throw a football.
Yep.
It really was inexplicable. And look, Dan Mullen made a lot of excuses after the game, but he absolutely called a horrific football game.
Horrible.
Like no real awareness of what was happening on the field, it seemed like. And that wasn't the first time that they brought Trask back in and it cost them points. It actually cost them a touchdown prior to that because it looked like they were driving and got down in the red zone, and he came in and made a couple of bad throws, and they ended up having to settle for a field goal. So there was 2 possessions where basically they're inside the 30, and Trask could do nothing. The freshman did have something going, but again, it wasn't going to be enough because there was several times, especially in the second half, where there were some great throws made, and whoever these guys are that came in to catch the football absolutely bricked it. I mean, couldn't catch a cold out there, right? Like perfect football, and just bang. So it was just not. That's when you're this is not happening. Everything's going wrong.
Night. And then, like you said, in the second half, after several bouts of offensive utility, OU really started to run away with it. Florida was gassed with being on the field a whole lot, and eventually, they took off with it. But I did find the whole narrative around the game funny, just because with the way Trask was playing, they should have been up 28, 30 points by the second half or the second quarter. And Rattler, they said on the game, I don't know if you noticed because you're watching live, but the dude went like 20 minutes between completions in the first half. After their first possession where they scored a touchdown, OU looked kind of ridiculous themselves on offense for several possessions.
Yeah. I think in the first half he only had 5 completions, something like that. It was a ridiculous number. So it was just a bizarre football game. It was a messy football game. The narratives afterwards, my God, they were terrible. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I think it's ridiculous. I did say, hey, sign me up for that. If the media doesn't care that many of your star players are out, okay, 8 starters total across the board, and then another dozen players, if they don't care, sign me up right now for every opponent next year to have that exact same situation. Well, if it's not,
I can promise you we're going to hear about it tomorrow night.
We already are.
We already are.
We heard about it tonight on the broadcast. Yeah. But it is, look, it's a problem. It's a legitimate problem that we've now gotten to the point in college football where you spend all of this time through the season as a team, and then you get to a bowl game, and tremendous number of players are sitting out bowl games and saying, I'm not going to risk injury unless there's something on the line. The 2 exceptions to that I've seen so far are really Oklahoma and A&M. Right? So, look, Cincinnati had their full suite available to them, but Cincinnati's a G5 team trying to make a point, so they had something to play for. They really did.
And not a lot of NFL talent on the team. By comparison.
No, that's fair. And that's actually fair for OU and A&M too, because there's not a whole lot of guys on either team that are faced with first or second round grades and are putting a lot at risk.
Yep.
So
we have a lot of NFL talent on the team, but none of them are eligible for the draft this year.
Exactly.
Not many.
Yeah.
So
there's not a lot of risk taking going on, right?
But I mean, we have to think a guy like Bobby Brown is gone, most likely. He's playing.
Wow.
Oh,
goodness gracious.
In the game here.
Yeah, last play of the third quarter, 3rd and 1. Travis Etienne takes the pitch from Lawrence and gets stuffed about 6 inches short of a first down. Wow. So they somehow
got to hold that block on the edge. That's horrible.
Yeah, that was a bad block. It really was. Yeah. Anyway, like you said, not a lot of risk to our guys. Is that it for bowl season? Did anybody else play in a bowl? No, they didn't. Nobody in the state of Texas, other than us, played in a bowl.
Yeah. Tomorrow,
taking on the North Carolina Tar Heels, a depleted North Carolina Tar Heel team, according to Chris Fowler on the broadcast tonight, with significant losses. 3 starters?
Yeah, they're number 1 receiver, number 1 running back, a defensive starter, and so their top 3 offensive production.
Well, they're depleted.
Yeah,
they're depleted. So
like I tweeted earlier, get ready because it's going to be a fun weekend from all of these talking heads unpacking when it does and does not matter who's out in the game. And because no joke, that's going to change mid-sentence sometimes.
Yeah.
When these guys are talking. So
it's just a matter of convenience, man.
Yep.
In the conversation. Now these idiots on Twitter, no, they actually get to type it out and think about it before they hit send.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, man. So what are you expecting tomorrow night? We haven't talked a lot about this matchup. What do you think is going to happen?
Oh boy. I keep going back and forth, but mostly because the heat of last weekend has cooled off. I think everybody, we were certainly fired up for quite a while about the rankings and whatnot, and you could tell the team was fired up about it. And so you just had this feeling you were so angry, and it felt like the team was also so angry, and so you're just like, man, they're just going to go rip their heads off. Um, then we've all had time to just kind of sit here and digest and cool off a little bit. But you know, I don't think it's going to matter. I think the team is mad. I think the team knows that there's actually a huge opportunity here. You talk about these games being meaningless, but I don't think this
Yeah.
game's meaningless for A&M at all. I think, like I said, a huge opportunity to stake your claim when people have been talking about Notre Dame's win over this team as something that they took very seriously. You have a chance to beat the brakes off of this team. And really use it as a springboard into next season and make people look silly for discounting who you are as a team. I think these guys actually really understand that, because I think most of the time when we bring those things up, it's mostly stuff for fans to talk about and to, get fired up about at the bar or whatever. But I think this team actually gets it and is genuinely ticked off about what's been said about them. And they were burned. They were spurned. They're pissed about it, and they should be. And I have this feeling that they are ready to rip some heads off.
Yeah, and look,
they're going to.
We talked about OU playing mad, and we talked about Ohio State playing mad. Mm-hmm. And I think you're right. I think A&M plays mad tomorrow. I think but if you listen to Jimbo this week, he was actually very careful to say, well, look, if you go out, you don't want to go out and play mad. You want mad and anger to drive your preparation and get you ready. And you said something about how the team has responded, and they've responded in the character of their head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
They've quiet confidence,
very team centric.
Mm-hmm.
You actually can tell that this thing is developed into kind of a brotherhood, right? And you said, well, they think they still have something to prove. And I think it actually even goes another step further than that, because what's the talk? A lot of these guys were asked about coming back next year. And a lot of them sort of responded the same way. They said, well, it's been talked about in the locker room. And yeah, it's something that, has been discussed, but we'll deal with that later. And I think there's a mentality that within this team that they do like playing together, that they've enjoyed the journey and coming together and all the things that have had to be in place and have had to happen this season. And that success has sort of, pulled them together even more. And the disrespect is even deeper in that regard. Like, hey, we've done all of this. Look at all these things we've done. Look at what we've become. Look at what was expected of us, and look at where we are. And nobody seems to be recognizing that. And a lot of them who don't have top 3 or top 4 draft grades may actually be thinking, I'm coming back. And if that's the case, why would they come back unless they want to win the whole damn thing?
Right.
And so they view tomorrow night as this is the next step, the first step. This is game one. This is game one of a national title run. I think that's how they view this. I think all of them view it that way. And even the ones like Kellen Mond, who nobody expects back, even despite what he said the other night, nobody expects that, views this as game one. That if A&M goes on to win a national title, he is the foundation of that. And a lot of these guys are the foundation of that. And I just think that they have that mentality. And I think this game is huge to them. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do with it. Now, it's bowl season. Sam Howell's a dangerous guy. Who knows? He's got a lot of weapons that won't be there. But he's a talented guy. and he could make a big difference in the football game. But the way A&M plays, the style of football they play, the choke you out mentality, I expect them to be successful, and I expect it to be another double-digit win to cap off the year. I think they're going to choke UNC out, and I think they're going to enjoy doing it.
I think so too. I think Aggies are all hoping for kind of more than that, something more of a, 21 points at least, margin of victory kind of thing. But really, I think what everybody really wants is the 1990 Holiday Bowl.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah,
I don't think it'll happen, and I don't think it'll be a 21-point win. I think UNC is the kind of team that they seem like Florida with a defense, like a more, just like a better put together defense. And so I think it's going to be a grinded out, win by 10, win by 14 kind of night. But people shouldn't be aggravated by that. I know we want the big blowout because we want to be able to point at Notre Dame and say, one more data point that says the committee really effed this thing up. But I don't think that's how it's going to be. But if they come out of this thing with a win, a good in character win, I will say this: we're going to look back at this as one of the great, probably one of the best A&M football teams, definitely the last 30 years, if not beyond. I mean, they're just, for a variety of reasons, right? Not the most talented, not the best record, but one of the best. For a lot of the intangibles, for a lot of what it means for the future, for the kind of the magic of the season. Because, guys, yes, you got beat by 28 in Tuscaloosa. You were picked 4th in the West coming into the season.
Even Billy Lucci saying 7 games might be the ceiling.
Yeah. So this team has overachieved. This team has done things nobody expected them to do. This team has been ranked 5th in the country for over a month. And if they win tomorrow night, they're probably going to end up 3rd. Just think about that. That's what I mean by one of the best teams of the last 3 decades, if not the best. So
I think you're right if that happens. And, I said it earlier this week. We talked last week about the trajectory we think we're on, how we think we're ahead of schedule with Jimbo. And we certainly believe that there's no real ceiling for A&M, especially with a coach like Jimbo. And I hope if A&M is able to reach the potential that we think is there under Jimbo, that Kellen Mond and this team get the credit they deserve for it. Because I think if it works out like we hope it does, like you said, these guys have been instrumental in creating the culture that's required to take the next step.
Absolutely. And, culture, yes, 1,000%. These guys fight for each other. They demand a certain level of play from each other. They've taken on the personality of Jimbo Fisher. That's what they've done. And something I did not fully appreciate until he got here, and the way he's built the team. But, something struck me today watching some of these other programs in the SEC and even watching Clemson tonight and Notre Dame. Defenses are not in our league are not what they used to be. And I do think that the style of play and I want to caveat that because, that's kind of become a narrative, but they're susceptible to what we do now on offense. And, they're not as tough. The athletes are everywhere, but because of the way their offensives play, right, they're starting to suffer a bit from that. And it's almost like, we talked about it, a couple weeks ago. Jimbo's building an old school SEC team. And man, I'm not, looking around at college football, that may be exactly what you got to be to go out and and do and to get to where we want to get to. With
Yeah,
one caveat, but go ahead.
well, again, I think we have to be careful using that kind of terminology to describe Jimbo's offensive philosophy, because when you say it that way, people conjure images of, Alabama under AJ McCarron or something like
Right.
that, right?
Yes.
And like we said, we think Jimbo's ultimate plan for this offense is more dynamic than that.
Yes.
Might not be what's going on in Alabama today, but it's also not 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And so, yes, I think he's building old school in terms of physicality, but something that's more sophisticated schematically than people are giving him credit for today.
Yeah, it's very pro style.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you so many options out of the same formations, right? The 2 tight end sets or the 1 tight end set, but it's physical,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what it is at its core, right? That's the starting point. And you think like what I see from Florida that's not what that is, and now interesting because Alabama at times that's not what they are, and then all of a sudden they decide that's what they want to be again. They can be it, right?
Yeah.
Like they really can. But their defense is what I see as different. Their defense is not as physically dominant as it could be. Georgia still is, but Georgia is almost to a fault, right? Because they're a little too big and lumbering on both sides of the ball. Right? They don't seem to be as dynamic in their blocking schemes or even in their defensive front as some other teams are. So I don't know. It's just an interesting evolution. It's something to kind of keep an eye on going forward, but it feels right. The path, the trajectory, the philosophy feels like it's what it needs to be.
It does. You know what it feels like to me? A little bit more like the late 80s Jackie Sherrill teams than the mid 90s RC Slocum teams. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Watch a lot of 80s Jackie Sherrill A&M football.
Screw you.
You're watching some YouTube videos? Yeah?
Yes.
You go back and watching some YouTube?
Yes. No, in truth.
Well, you have to, because look, we didn't get to watch this.
No.
Look, we had a hard upbringing, okay?
We
didn't have the giant satellite dish in the backyard, okay? All right. We controlled our TV with the knob on the TV set.
That's right.
So we didn't get to watch a lot of A&M football. I tell everybody, well, growing up, I watched. Here's how I knew who won the A&M football game. I walked out my front door. I walked down to the supermarket, and I went to the paper dispenser, and I looked at the top of the Dallas Morning News of the college football scores on Sunday morning, and that's how I knew if A&M won or not.
Yeah, okay. So sure as hell wasn't going to waste a quarter.
No, the Sunday paper was what? It was
$1.50.
I think it was $1 back then.
Yeah,
I think it was $1. So yeah, $1 I didn't have.
Yeah,
goodness gracious, 49-21 Ohio State.
Yeah.
But okay, I'll give you that. A little more dynamic, certainly more dynamic than kind of what we got in the RC days, which really was 5 yards in a cloud of dust.
Yeah.
Until Reggie came along.
Yep.
And then it looked good for a little bit.
Half a season.
And then Fran came in and destroyed that completely. But damn.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. I
know. We shouldn't bring it up.
I shouldn't have brought that up.
Just
well, look, it's been a weird week. I'm not really going to say I've enjoyed bowl season. I do think this whole opt-out thing is just such a downer, because you want to see good football teams at full strength. You want to see teams. And I'm just thankful tomorrow night we're going to see A&M's football team.
Yes.
So,
it is a downer, and it brings out the kind of the worst in people. Just nobody can talk about it with any kind of clarity. It's just yeah, including us.
Look, I mean, got to get out there, and you got to get out there and fight. For what you know to be correct. So anyway,
sure.
Maybe we're back tomorrow night. I don't know. We'll have to see. Kind of depends on how it goes. See how
man.
functional we are. What?
Last
Oh,
last game of the season, man. We gotta figure out something.
well,
Um,
that's true. We got to make a commitment to the people. But this is a terrible ending to our show. We should
well,
probably think of a better way to end the show.
okay. Go to hell, Texas.
Go to hell, Texas. Gig 'em Aggies. Beat the hell out of North Carolina and Mac Brown.